Apple wants to check your phone. No, there's absolutely no way. There's no reason I would ever want Apple checking my phone. Look, hear me out. Some people out there, sick, disgusting people, are looking at illicit images of minors and young people, and this has to be stopped. Do you not agree with that? Do you not agree with stopping illicit images being exchanged of young children? Oh no, God, obviously I agree with that. Right, give us your phone then, we're going to check it, do what we want with it. It is only for the illicit images of young people, isn't it? Listen, just leave the thinking to us, yeah?
New controversy over Apple's latest software update, Neural Match. The program, scheduled for rollout later this year, will scan US iPhones for images of child sex abuse.
You know by now that Apple want to be able to check phones for illicit images of children. No one in the world, except for an obvious and hopefully rather small demographic, has any interest in allowing that kind of material to be exchanged. You know, I think we've agreed on that. But I was very interested to hear former Under the Skin guest Edward Snowden, as he's commonly known, talking about this move by Apple and how it would likely be misused. You're surely aware by now that whenever there's a disaster, whether it's a military disaster, a terrorism disaster, a medical health disaster, that it is used to sort of crowbar in legislation that will be beneficial. Now, obviously, the kind of images, and that's, you know what I'm referring to, of course, I'm being careful around the language, that is a moral disaster. That is an ethical disaster. That is a spiritual disaster, a breach on the sacredness of innocence and the principle of consent. But can you trust Apple, a undemocratic, super powerful tech company, to be in charge of having access to your phone? Well, if you ain't got nothing to hide, you ain't got nothing to fear. Oh my God, they can change that at any time. That's what Edward Snowden's saying. That's what I'm suggesting, that it may begin with something that basically every human in the world agrees with, that child pornography is wrong, but it might lead to further kinds of interception and snooping that you might not approve of, particularly the way the world is changing so radically and the way that big tech are operating in correspondence with government. I would be extremely careful about granting them those kind of abilities. This is from Awa Madawi, writing in The Guardian. Apple announced a new set of protection for children features that will look for US iPhones for images of child abuse. One of these features is a tool called Neural Match, which will scan photo libraries to see if they contain anything that matches a database of known child abuse imagery. Another feature scans iMessages sent or received by accounts that belong to a minor. It will then notify the parents when a child receives sexually explicit imagery. Now, of course, I'm a parent. Anyone that has children, your love of children, and maybe even if you don't have children, your love of children is so powerful and so strong that you would almost accept anything to keep your children safe. You would do anything. Do you think it's a coincidence that this is the way that these companies that are dependent on data, dependent on being able to access your information, dependent, of course, in the case of Apple, it's hardware, but it don't hurt them to have access. And then remember, they operate in conjunction with government, and some people believe that relationships between big tech and government goes deeper than anyone would sensibly speculate on publicly. Would you like that kind of nexus to be granted that kind of power, knowing what you know because of the revelations of whistleblowers like Snowden? Do you want them to have more power? Are there not other ways that we can keep children safe and protect children? And when you use something that's emotionally provocative, evocative, and overwhelming, like the safety of children, a sacred principle of most cultures, then it kind of blurs your vision and stops you thinking straight. I have noticed a trend where people use, or institutions or organizations use, areas of moral certainty to enter into more ambiguous areas. This is one obvious example. In order to eliminate child pornography, yes, we want that result. That's a good result. We want to be able to check your phone for anything, but you can trust us only to check for those things. Dodgy. Not everybody is a paedophile. A small minority of people are, but by auguring legislation of this scale, you could use it down the line for anything. Ultimately, anyone is an enemy whose interests do not align with the interests of the powerful. At the moment, your interests do not disrupt the interests of the powerful. If ever they do, you will know about it. So we have to be careful around these ideas. Of particular concern to security researchers and privacy activists is the fact that this new feature doesn't just look at images stored on the cloud, it scans users' devices without their consent. The irony. Essentially, that means there's now a sort of backdoor. steady, into an individual's iPhone, one which has the potential to grow wider and wider. We probably won't even do that one. The Electronic Frontier Foundation, which is a cool name, an online civil liberties advocacy group, warns that all it would take to widen the narrow back door. We've got to stop talking about widening back doors. I'm a professional comedian. I'm working so hard here. To widen the narrow back door that Apple is building is an expansion of the machine learning parameters to look for additional types of content. Wow, that's what we'd have to do. So you could just say, and also anyone that's interested in buying this, and anybody that's ever spoken out against this, or anyone that's ever said that, or any, like, you could just do what you want once you've installed the basic thing. Once you've set up the circuit, you can put whatever you want down it. That's not a slippery slope. That's a fully built system just waiting for external pressure to make the slightest change. Edward Snowden voiced concerns about Apple's new features. No matter how well-intentioned, Edward Snowden's taking the piss there, isn't he? Because we've spoke to Edward Snowden on our podcast, Under the Skin, available on Luminary from, get this, Apple. And he says like he's a dry dude, he's a smart dude, he's been through the ringer. So when he says things like, no matter how well-intentioned, Apple is rolling out mass surveillance to an entire world, he knows it's not well-intentioned, is what I'm basically saying. With this, make no mistake, if they can scan for kiddie porn today, they can scan for anything tomorrow. They turned $1 trillion of devices into iNarcs without asking. Good use of language there from the great Snowden. Ross Anderson, Professor of Security Engineering at Cambridge University and Edinburgh University, says, historically, the idea of scanning customers' devices for evidence of crime comes from China. I remember when iTunes put the free bloody U2 album on my phone. I was like, hey! Nothing against Bono. I like Bono and the Edge and that. But I was like, get off my phone. And like when you do it, when you charge it, if you've got it charging overnight, we'll give you a little update. Then the next day, you've got to enter all these things. What's that? I don't know what it is. What's your 4-letter PIN? I haven't got a 4-letter PIN. What are you asking me? Leave me alone. I just want to be able to text people. I want to be able to email people. And I probably watch a bit too much on YouTube. Just leave me alone. Here, we've given you some U2 albums. Get that down, yeah. This idea comes from China. It was introduced in 2008 when a system called Green Dam was installed on all PCs sold in the country. It was described as a porn filter, but its main purpose was to search for phrases such as Falun Gong. Well, I've never liked that Falun Gong over in China, do you? Have you ever been near the embassy in China? They're always out there doing the Falun Gong. And the Dalai Lama. They've never liked him either. It also made its users' computers vulnerable to remote takeover. Oh, but you don't think they would misuse that, do you? Oh, look at that thing we were using just because we're so against child pornography, you know. Actually, it turns out any dissidents or anyone who disagrees with us in any way, we can just take over the computer. Yeah, but we'd never do that, would we? 13 years later, tech firms in China are completely subservient to the state, including Apple, which keeps all the iCloud data of its Chinese customers in data centers run by a state-owned company. Oh, wow. So in China, Apple's relationship with the state, because the state don't play in China, is utterly integrated, and all of the information that Apple has, it shares because it's a different cultural context, so they just do what's allowed. Well, while we're over here in China, we're keeping our American values. We respect liberty and privacy. No, in China, we just do what the Chinese bloody well want because that's what's convenient and expedient for our economic relationships. And I'm not obviously condemning any individuals. What's the point in that? But it's a set of ideals that suggest that we should be bleeding careful about this stuff, no? Until now, democracies have allowed government surveillance in two sets of circumstances. First, if it's limited to a specific purpose. Second, if it's targeted at specific people. Examples of special purpose surveillance include speed cameras, right, and the software in photocopies that stops you copying banknotes. Oh yeah, that's going to work. Here you go, sir. £20 of money. It's black and white. I know. You've probably got cataracts. Oh, well, thank you, sir. Enjoy your day. Targeting specific people usually requires paperwork such as a warrant. Apple's system looks like the first type of these, but once it's built into phones, Macs and even watches in a way that circumvents even their security and privacy mechanisms, it could scan for whatever else or whoever else a government demands. These concerns are not abstract, nor are they limited only to countries considered authoritarian. The European Union just updated the law allowing tech firms to scan communications for illegal images, requiring firms to scan text too. In Britain, the Investigatory Powers Act will also enable ministers to order a firm to assist in interception. Your iPhone may be quietly looking for missing children, but it may also be searching for the police's most wanted. Just looking out, making sure there's no pedos about. Oh, I don't agree with that. You shouldn't have said that. Oh, we've not paid your gas bill. Oh, dear. There's a photograph of your bum in there. All right, get out of there. Sorry, I was just trying to help. Politically, the tech industry has often resisted pressure to increase surveillance, but now that Apple has broken ranks, it will be harder for other firms to resist demands by governments. Child protection online is an urgent problem, but this proposal will do little to prevent these crimes while opening the floodgates to a significant expansion of the surveillance state. No one in their right mind disagrees with measures to protect children. But anybody in their right mind can see that big tech, in alliance with government, invading privacy of individual people without their consent is a huge major problem. And it isn't overly cynical to suggest that they might use deliberately emotive ideas that cut through your ability to think rationally in order to facilitate the kind of legislation that will advance their agenda to have total dominion and surveillance potential in allegiance with the government. These relationships, as we know, are corrupted and corruptible, even in instances where they are as yet not corrupt. So I think we should be incredibly circumspect and should resist that kind of change, frankly. If you disagree with me or if you agree with me, comment below. Please give us a like, give us a thumbs up, share this thing around if you want to. Please subscribe to this channel, and if you need a little break, why don't you go over to my Awakening channel where you can get meditation and well-being advice. Sign up to my mailing list at russellbrand.com. And if you enjoyed deep conversations, even like the one I had with Edward Snowden, go over to Luminary on, ironically, Apple, and you can listen to that. It's a subscription model. Also, there's guided meditations there. If you want more free content, why don't you watch this video on a similar subject that you will enjoy? And if you need to unwind and learn something about spirituality, have a little look at this. Thanks for following us.